Chapter 14, Home Again. And what a beautiful little picture there. Aunt Em had just come out of the house to water the cabbages when she looked up and saw Dorothy running toward her. "My darling child," she cried, folding the little girl in her arms and covering her face with kisses. "Where in the world did you come from?" "From the land of Oz," said Dorothy gravely, "and here is Toto, too. And oh, Aunt Em, I'm so glad to be home again." Oh, man. All right, let's read this last bit here. Here ends the story of The Wonderful Wizard of Oz, which was written by L. Frank Baum and illustrated by William Wallace Denslow. The engravings were made by the Illinois Engraving Company. The paper was supplied by Dwight Brothers Paper Company, and Messrs. A.R. Barnes and Company printed the book for the publishers, the George M. Hill Company, completing it on the 15th day of May in the year 1900. And there's happy little Dorothy. And I guess this is the back of the book. Looks kind of cool. All right. Well, I guess since we're at the end here, this might be a good time to go back up and reread this this intro here. I've been kind of thinking about it ever since I started this book. Where is it? Intro. It's just so interesting how times change. I just want to read this again and maybe say something about it. This is the intro he gave at the very beginning here, which isn't in every edition of the book. Folklore, legends, myths, and fairy tales have followed childhood through the ages, for every healthy youngster has a wholesome and instinctive love for stories, fantastic, marvelous, and manifestly unreal. The winged fairies of Grimm and Andersen have brought more happiness to childish hearts than any other human creations. Yet the old-time fairy tale, having served for generations, may now be classed as historical in the children's library, for the time has come for a series of newer wonder tales, in which the stereotyped genie, dwarf, and fairy are eliminated, together with all the horrible and blood-curdling incident devised by their authors to point a fearsome moral to each tale. Modern education includes morality, therefore the modern child seeks only entertainment in its wonder tales, and gladly dispenses with all disagreeable incident. So the education is going to give enough morals. We don't need to put it in our stories. Having this thought in mind, the story of The Wonderful Wizard of Oz was written solely to pleasure children of today. It aspires to being a modernized fairy tale in which the wonderment and joy are retained and the heartaches and nightmares are left out. So what's interesting, especially as you come to the end, and you think about some of that stuff toward the end, like the China Country and all that kind of stuff. It is a very happy, wonderful, cartoony story. Now, it definitely has, some dark things. So, he's talking about the stereotype genie, dwarf, and fairy with the horrible and blood-curdling. I mean, there's definitely negative things in the story. You can't have a good story without negative things, like the witch taking Dorothy, and the lion being in the prison jail there, and then you get the beautiful moment where Dorothy can go with the lion and they enjoy some moments together in their suffering and pain, But I suppose this is the kind of thing where he's speaking into a particular culture which we don't have anymore. Because I've seen other books around the same time where they say something similar about, making some kind of either mocking comment or some other thing about stories having to always have some kind of moral. There's a comment like that in Alice in Wonderland. There's a comment like that near the end of the Headless Horseman story. I forget what that one's called. Sleepy Hollow. So I suppose probably this is how I'm kind of interpreting this page here. Because this story clearly has a lot of moral points to it, particularly the whole thing about the characters having the things that they want, which they clearly have from the beginning. And there's a number of points, particularly around the latter part of midway of the book, where there's clearly things that the author is intending to communicate to children. It's not that he's trying to get rid of communicating entirely, I think, probably. but he's reacting probably to a more extreme. Anyway, that's my interpretation of it. But he definitely met his goal of creating a joyful, like when I remember reading this as a kid, it really is a very happy story, especially as you come toward the end. Though it's bittersweet when you come toward the end because you don't want it to end. But it doesn't end, really. There's another book. And I suppose part of the reason that other book came, if I remember right, it was something to the effect of his fans begged him to make another one, and he finally did. And I'll probably move on and just start reading through that one because I actually never read the second book until I was an adult, like very recently, like a year ago. I first went through the first book, or the second book. And it's a nice sequel. So I'm going to look forward to reading through that one. All right, anyway, that's The Wonderful Wizard of Oz from 1900. Wonderful classic book, full of joy, also intriguing to analyze in some ways, but not pedantically moralistic like some of the stuff he was reacting to. And I think that gives it more space to be more joyful and carefree and light and stuff. And then there's going to be a second one, which is called The Marvelous Land of Oz. Oh, that happy little man. All right, so until then, it is time to say, oh, I guess there is no line that says the end. B, what is that? The letter B and the letter D? I don't know what that means, but anyway, catch you around.